There are names in history that are remembered, not for victories or greatness, but for the terror and fear they left behind. Mary I, the daughter of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon, is one such figure. When she ascended to the throne in 1553, many believed it would mark the beginning of a new era, with England gaining its first legitimate queen. But just a few years later, the entire nation trembled as they referred to her by a nickname that sent shivers down the spine. Bloody Mary, a name tied to blood, fire, and horrific executions. History remembers Mary as a brutal ruler, but have we ever asked ourselves, what transformed a once ignored princess, a woman who suffered an unhappy childhood, into a queen willing to burn hundreds of people alive, simply because of religious beliefs? Was it cold cruelty or the tragedy of a woman pushed to extremes by past wounds and the weight of the crown? In this episode, we will dive deep into the life of Mary Fuss, from a dark childhood to a brief but blood-soaked reign, and finally the controversial legacy she left behind. This is a story not only about a queen, but about pain, obsession, and the terrible price of power. Mary I was born in 1516 as the only surviving child of Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon as a young girl. She was loved by her parents, raised as a legitimate princess, with sharp intellect and strong religious convictions, inherited from her mother. But that happiness was short-lived. When Henry VIII decided to divorce Catherine, to marry Anne Boleyn, Mary's world shattered. She was stripped of her title as princess, regarded as an illegitimate child, forced to separate from her beloved mother, and subjected to the control of the stepmother she despised. These formative years left deep scars in Mary's soul. From a child who was once adored, she became one who lived in isolation, constantly fighting to maintain her faith and loyalty to her mother. The insecurity, shame, and isolation she endured forged a Mary who was tough, proud but also vulnerable. She did not simply grow into a queen. She grew into a woman, haunted by the need to prove her worth in a world that always sought to deny her. After the death of Edward VI, the English throne was thrown into chaos. Powerful figures in the court sought to crown Lady Jane Grey, a 16-year-old girl, with the hope of making her a puppet ruler. But Mary, who had spent her life being humiliated and disregarded, would not accept this. She gathered support from nobles and commoners alike. For in their eyes, Mary was the legitimate daughter of Henry VIII, the true heir to the throne. The overthrow of Jane Grey happened swiftly and dramatically in just 9 days. Jane was deposed and Mary entered London, to the cheers of the crowd. That moment marked the greatest victory of her life. From being seen as illegitimate, Mary reclaimed her rightful place and became England's first legally reigning queen. But that joy was only the beginning of harsh trials. Mary not only had to prove her ability to rule in a male-dominated world, but she also faced the impending religious conflict that was about to explode. And from that throne, her destiny was about to turn to a chapter filled with bloodshed. When Mary ascended to the throne, what she desired most was not power or wealth, but the restoration of Catholic faith, a belief she had been nurtured with since childhood and had witnessed being trampled upon during the reign of her father and brother. As soon as she had the chance, Mary began to reverse the previous reforms, bringing the Pope back as the head of the Church of England. For Mary, this was not just a policy, but a sacred mission to cleanse the stains of the past and prove herself as the legitimate Princess of Vav, Catherine of Aragon. However, this unwavering faith turned her reign into one filled with blood and fire. Hundreds of Protestant believers were imprisoned. Many prominent scholars and clergymen were burned at the stake. The fiery flames in Smithfield and Oxford spread fear throughout the country, leaving the people with horrifying memories. It was then that the nickname Bloody Mary was born, forever tied to her name to those loyal to Catholicism. Mary was a brave queen, but to the majority, she became a symbol of cruelty. And it is here that the image of Mary, why, is forever stained with tragedy and controversy. Mary Y. believed that one of her greatest responsibilities as queen was to secure an heir, to strengthen the throne, and guarantee the future of England. For this reason, she chose to marry Philip II of Spain, hoping that the marriage would not only bring a strong political alliance, but also give her the opportunity to become a mother. At that time, Mary was over 30, and her yearning to have children had become an obsession. But this marriage quickly turned into a disappointment. Philip did not truly love Mary. He was cold, distant, and saw the marriage only as a political tool. Meanwhile, Mary believed several times that she was pregnant, her belly growing with the entire court, waiting for a prince to be born. However, it was all a false pregnancy, leaving an unbearable pain for Mary. It was not only a personal failure, but also a deep wound to the entire dynasty. Her longing to be a mother, combined with the loneliness in her marriage, made Mary increasingly insecure and tough in her decisions. She became a woman who fought not only against political enemies, but also with the emptiness in her heart. Mary I's reign lasted only 5 years, but it was filled with heavy disappointments. She not only failed to produce an heir, but also witnessed England losing Calais, the last remaining piece of French land, once a symbol of national pride. Upon hearing the news, Mary exclaimed, "When I die, let it be engraved on my heart, Calais." These words reflected the deep pain and regret of a queen who had failed to preserve a legacy for her country. In the final years of her life, Mary's health rapidly declined. The illness weakened her further, while her soul sank into loneliness. Philip II grew distant. Many in the court turned away, and the people resented her harsh religious policies. On November 17, 1558, Mary passed away at the age of 42, leaving the throne to her half-sister, Elizabeth I. Mary's death marked the end of a short and tragic reign. She passed away without children, without love, and without the trust of her subjects. All that remained was a name, forever linked to blood and tears. The legacy of Mary Foss remains a topic of intense debate. To many, she is remembered as a brutal queen, earning the nickname Bloody Mary, which is forever associated with blood and fear. But if we look deeper, we see a woman torn apart by the pain of her childhood, by an unshakable religious faith, and by a desperate desire to assert her rightful place. She wasn't just a bloodthirsty ruler. She was a woman carrying the weight of history, trying to restore what she believed to be justice. Mary also opened the door for women to ascend to the English throne, even though her reign was short and tragic. Her existence paved the way for Elizabeth of York's future success, and from there history witnessed one of the greatest queens in England's history. So despite the shadow that covered Mary's image, she left an indelible mark on history. The story of Mary serves as a reminder that power, when not accompanied by compassion, can become a double-edged sword, and sometimes personal wounds can shape an entire era, leaving lessons for generations to come. Mary's story ends like a tragedy, the echoes of which continue to resonate throughout history. She is not remembered as a queen who brought peace, nor as a shrewd leader who led England to prosperity, but as the woman known as Bloody Mary, a cold name forever linked to blood and fear. However, if we only view her through that lens, we miss the truth that Mary was also a human being, filled with wounds and desires. She longed for recognition, yearned to uphold the faith passed down from her mother, and dreamed of having a family and an heir to continue the dynasty. These seemingly simple desires, when caught in the whirlwind of power, turned into a terrible burden that made her a symbol of cruelty. Mary stands as proof of the truth that power can lift a person to the throne, but it can also crush their heart. She was both the perpetrator of brutal persecutions and the victim of her circumstances and fate. It is this contradiction that makes Mary's image unforgettable, a haunting presence in history. Looking back, Mary reminds us that the true strength of a leader lies not only in willpower, but also in compassion and the ability to heal. When these qualities are lacking, even the noblest aspirations can turn into a stain on history. So what do you think? Does Mary really truly deserve the title Bloody Mary? Or was she simply a victim of her time? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Channel History, so we continue exploring more captivating, yet haunting historical stories in the episodes ahead.